Member from Simcoe Grey.
Speaker, my questions for the Minister of Health. Recently, Mr. Robbie Ross of Collingwood wrote to me to say that he requires knee replacement surgery. Mr. Ross met with his orthopedic surgeon at the Collingwood General Marine Hospital, who told him recently that the joint surgery budget is used up for this fiscal year. Mr. Ross is now on a waiting list, and the fiscal year for the surgery budget doesn't start again until April 2017, and Mr. Ross has no idea how long he'll be on that waiting list. Mr. Ross is frustrated, and his surgeon is too. This type of situation is unacceptable, Mr. Speaker. It signifies how the government's wasteful spending, mismanagement and scandal has harmed our healthcare sector, and we warned you, Minister and Premier, that this would happen. Speaker, what does this minister have to say to Mr. Ross
Question.
and many other residents in my riding who have similar stories?
Thank you. Minister of Health, Long-Term Care.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I would say to Mr. Ross that it's important that he work with his local primary care provider, with his specialist. There are some specialists, Mr. Speaker, that have longer wait times than others. The LHIN is in a position, and often does, with individual patients, Mr. Speaker, works with them to find perhaps a specialist, a surgeon, a hospital nearby that has a shorter wait time. But it's also the responsibility of that specialist to prioritize. And so those that truly most urgently do require that hip or knee replacement or cataract surgery, it's completely within the realm of that hospital, completely within the realm of that specialist to actually put that person at the top of the list, Mr. Speaker. So we need to make sure that triage is taking place. We need to, as a province, invest, as we are, $2 billion just to reduce wait times for important procedures. That's what's got us to the top of the list in Canada for the shortest wait times across the board, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Well, clearly, Mr. Speaker, the government's going to have to do better. We're only halfway through the fiscal year, and hospital after hospital, surgeon after surgeon has run out of money. You blamed us for not voting for your budget. Well, your budget passed and made things worse, so thank God we didn't vote for it, I say, Mr. Speaker. Lisa Henderly is a 46-year-old Wasaga Beach resident who needs hip surgery. But like Mr. Ross, she's been told that there's no money left for her procedure, and so she has to wait until at least April 2017. Ms. Henderly says she's in pain. She says it's hard for her to work and do physical activities with her children. And Mr. Speaker, Mrs. Henderly has a question for the minister, and it's this. If the minister's wife or mother needed to have surgery, but there was no more funding left for them, and they had to wait a year or longer,
Question.
and he saw them in such pain on a daily basis, would the minister find this acceptable?
Thank you. Minister.
Well, thank God, Mr. Speaker, that Mrs. Henderson and her family, that they didn't need that hip surgery 15 years ago when that government was in power, because it would have taken her twice as long, Mr. Speaker. We've reduced the length of time to wait for hip surgery by 50%, Mr. Speaker, since we came into government. And in fact, 86% of Ontarians receive a knee or hip replacement within 6 months in this province, and that's 7% better than the national average, and it's better than almost every jurisdiction around this world. They didn't vote for this budget. They voted against additional investments to further reduce those wait times, Mr. Speaker. And when we came into government, they didn't even measure it. When we started measuring wait times, they left the worst wait times in this country to us to fix. We fixed it. We're continuing to do the job. No thanks to you.